Hi, everybody. You are listening to Judging Meghan with your host, Meghan Judge. I just told Nikki before we started recording that I'm going to lose my marbles because they are building a house across the street from me. And not only, Nikki, I left this out, are they building a house? So they're digging down to make a basement. The house next to them is also doing construction because they were like, you know what? They're building a house. We might as well do construction on our house as well. So literally all day long, anytime I need to leave my driveway, I want to lay on the horn. And I know they're working, and it's not the people that is working's fault. So I try to remind myself of that, but it's so frustrating. And I want to give middle fingers every morning, but I'm not going to give it to them because they're just doing their job. But honestly, like living in this construction zone is really, really annoying. And every morning I'm woken up at 7 o'clock in the morning. They start booming, like unloading stuff and all this stuff at 7 a.m. and my entire house shakes. So there's my complaining, Karening out for today's podcast. Also, listeners, you're not going to hear my intro anymore because after 5 years actually, I don't think I've had close to 5 years of the same intro. I took it out. I asked Celeste to take the intro out because I'm in a different place. I don't want to talk about, and I'm going to bring Nikki in a second. I don't want to talk about my life. I was surrounded by shame and abuse and, dragged through the mud, and now I'm surviving and thriving. I don't want to say that anymore. So I took it out because I'm me, and I'm still going to struggle. We all do. But I just started to get really irritated by my own Britney Spears music and intro. There we go. Nikki, welcome to the podcast. You're like, okay, and I'm ready to leave right now. Nikki Eisenhauer is also a podcaster. She has a top mental health podcast called Emotional Badass. She's also a licensed psychotherapist and empath and coach. And I was recording on her podcast earlier in the week. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I am a big fan of yours after talking to you. I love that we are on the same path, if you will. We share similar diagnoses of complex PTSD, which we're going to get into. But before we go there and I start asking you questions, do you have anything to say about what a Karen I was in my intro?
Oh, no, I understand it. I had a house being built right next door last year, and I cried a lot. It completely overstimulated me.
Yeah.
Constantly. And when your home is your sanctuary, all the understanding in the world, of course, they're allowed to build a house next door. Of course, they're allowed to do construction, right? But in terms of our personal space, my nervous system, it was really grating, and it was very, very hard. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, right? It's like, oh, I heard noise from next door. How delicate am I?
Yeah.
But to have it so many hours of the day, so constantly, when you have complex post-traumatic stress issues, your nervous system is already raw. It's already sort of frayed and frazzled. And so to have that overstimulation whole thing going on next door, I deeply understand. I was so relieved to have the bulk of the construction done next door because it changed the energy around me, as woo-woo as that sounds. So yeah, I get it.
Thank you for allowing me to be a Karen and complain. You just made me feel a lot better. I can't, you're right. It does make me really anxious hearing the boom and all of the stuff. And it just really irritates me, but it also stresses me out. So it's like you said, my home is my sanctuary. I record from home. So for listeners, if you hear booming sounds, I apologize. But anyways, so thank you for siding with me on that one. Nikki, I'm going to just start because you're not here to talk about construction today. I would love to know, tell me a little bit about yourself and where you grew up.
I am a New Orleans gal, born and raised. So I grew up in that crazy city, and that's a ride to grow up there. It did a lot that was lovely for me, but it did a lot that was kind of hard and convoluted to grow up there. I grew up with a really big Catholic family. I grew up in a police family. I grew up being the bastard child to my teenage mother. I had a lot of very early trauma. And of course, I didn't understand that as a young person. I just thought I was depressed and too sensitive and anxious and didn't understand. But I even had last rites when I was born. I had the Catholic priest come and they thought I was going to die. I was a preemie. I was very, very sick. And I didn't. I used my little stubbornness even back then to stay alive. And my life has just been one of those lives where so much has happened. It's as if I feel like I've lived 7 different people's lives all in my life, and I'm only 45. I still have a whole half a lifetime to go. So sometimes that's mind-blowing. So I've really spent the last 20 years of my life, 25 now, I'm getting older, trying to sort out, who am I? What do I need? How do I integrate the things that have happened to me so that I can have the life that I really want and that I intend with a lot of that beautiful stubbornness. I intend to have a very beautiful life. I will not settle for less than that. So I like to podcast because I like to share what I think of as my hard-earned wisdom. It was this wisdom that I have, the things that have helped me heal have come so hard-earned, so uphill battle, that if I can help anybody else connect some dots, figure some things out, and just bring more ease, because that's what we're all looking for. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care how different it is. If you're a sensitive, deep person, you want ease, you want flow, you want to have the beauty of life and less of the burden. And being highly sensitive since birth in this world, and even in my family system that is not highly sensitive, has been its own very difficult education. So that's what I like to do. I've been a therapist for 19 years. My specialties are addiction, trauma, grief and loss, and highly sensitive people. And so the combination of those have served me and my clientele very, very well. I think those are really the things that make us human. And the more that we share in our stories, I think the more that we share with our stories. And I think that's very human and really more of the natural way we are supposed to learn as people, like around the fire at night, sharing stories, as opposed to, well, this study proved this to me, so therefore we're going to go forward because science says. I think we're really missing this human to human sharing of hard-earned wisdom. So that's what I'm about.
I love that. And I love that when you just said, I don't love what you said, because I'm also grew up in an Irish Catholic family.
Aha, we have that in common too.
So we have that in common too. But just, and I shared my story with you, my listeners know my story, but just the feeling of being a fighter your whole life and coming into the world a fighter. Like you were a fighter from the minute you were brought in.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, from that first moment. And then my sisters, I'm the eldest. I have 2 little sisters that I'm no contact with. And thankfully, I think most people don't have to go no contact with their families, but some of us really do. But my little sisters, when I was very small, they had heart issues and breathing issues. So as a toddler, I watched them basically stop breathing and die and get resuscitated by my mother again and again and again. It's taken me many years to really understand how that primed my nervous system. Even to be a little baby and you can't breathe. I mean, that feels like you're drowning and you don't have verbal ways of processing that when you're that little. So I can really look back and have a lot of compassion for my little bitty self and understand the stressors. My mom and father were also forced to get married. You know, part of that old school Catholic background is if you get pregnant, you're going to have that baby. And if you let your family force you, you're going to get married. And that's what happened to my parents. They could not have been more wrong for each other. So they were volatile and violent, and not in the traditional way that media likes to to paint. I think we paint a lot of pictures of the poor woman getting beaten by the man. Those aren't my memories. My memories are my mother goading him and getting physical with him until he was violent. You don't ever really hear that story, but that's often the story, especially in this modern day, where as women, we have claimed all the rights of men, haven't we? Well, that shows up in domestic violence too. So there's just so much. Then my father abandoned me and my sisters when we were young. So I was very bonded to him because my mother is I've come to understand is very sociopathic. Every sociopath is also a narcissist. She's very ice queen, very cold. So I was fed and I was clothed and my hair always looked very nice and I had nice clothes on and I was clean and I had a roof over my head. The basic boxes were checked. But in terms of warmth, in terms of soft place to fall, I had almost none of that. So I really gravitated towards my father just because he was warmer. And then he left too. And that devastated me.
How old were you when your dad left?
They had a horrible, War of the Roses divorce when they didn't even have any assets to fight over, which is ridiculous, but doable when you have two personality disordered people fighting each other to the death, basically. They had a 7-year separation and divorce. Today's courts won't really let that happen. But back then, in the late 80s, early 90s, that was still happening. So I was 6 when they separated, maybe close to 7. And that's one of the post-traumatic stress things when you have a lot of trauma when you're little. No matter how many times I try to write out an exact timeline of those specific years, it's a little wonky. Sometimes it seems like it's 6. Sometimes it seems like it's 5. Sometimes it seems like it's 7. And what that means is that my brain really couldn't take in everything that was going on. So they were tumultuous. He ruined all of my stuff. So at the same time my parents split up, I didn't have any of my clothing or any of my furniture or my bed. And we had to escape to my grandparents where I didn't have a room, or I shared a room with 3 other people. So between 6 and 10, he started flaking. So I was the little girl on my grandmother's porch going, oh, Papa said he's going to pick me up today. And I'd go wait outside. My sisters were younger. My youngest sister was an actual infant under a year old. She wasn't bonded to him at all. And my other sister was about 3. And so she would kind of wait for her father and then get distracted and go play. And I was determined. So I would wait on the porch all day long. My grandparents, my mom would come out and go, Nikki, he's not coming. And I go, yes, he is. He promised me. And I would wait and wait and wait. It still chokes me up to this day.
I know. I can tell.
Yeah.
It brings tears to my eyes too.
Yeah. Because all you want as a little one is to have that safety, that security, that wanting to be seen, right?
Yeah. Ugh.
And so I spent
just the abandonment issues. The abandonment issues.
Oh my God, I'm the poster child of daddy issues because of that. And then after that, I had to really process that he was gone, and he really didn't want me, and left.
Okay, so 6 to 10. Waiting on a porch, which is heartbreaking. Then he's gone. So then
there were other things too. I mean, there were part of the story there. If you want my full trauma history, is
no, go for it.
I don't know if it's true or not, but part of the message to me from my mother, and my school was involved in this, so it was official stuff, was that he had also threatened to kidnap me and my sisters. He's of Italian descent, speaks fluent Italian, was going to take us to Italy and leave us for dead. And I knew that as a little girl. And because of who my mother was, there were times where the alert was high and she'd bring us to school. And then if she got bored and didn't want to bring us to school, she'd then tell me to walk to school, which was about a mile away. And I would be told I'm responsible for the safety of my little sisters. And I had to deal with feeling torn. One part of me desperately wanting to see my father. The other part of me terrified by being told he wanted to kidnap me and let me die. So to process, and there were therapists involved in this. There were school officials. I was terrified on the playground. The other kids would run to the playground and hit the fence. I'd stop. I was too scared to even get to the fence. I teach boundaries now. I'm teaching a big boundaries intensive this October. I'll tell you more about that at the end. It's one of the reasons I teach boundaries. Like even that memory of even the boundaries of the fence that made almost every other kid feel safe and contained in that school, it wasn't enough for me. That's how unsafe I felt, that I still felt like I could get snatched. We look at in trauma why so many of us are parentified, why so many of us are just uber responsible and struggle with perfectionism. I'm also a protector. Of course I am. I was raised directly to be a protector on top of my innate personality and heart and temperament of being a protector naturally anyway. So those are the types of things over the course of me healing that we have to unravel. I had to unravel that and go, who am I? What do I want to bring forward with me? What do I want to let go of? So much was convoluted. And I think that's a big part of what sets somebody up to have a lot of complex post-traumatic stress. Not being able to figure out what the truth is in your world, not ever really being able to feel safe on top of the attachment losses. Shortly after that, as my father sort of exited and that threat just didn't ever get handled, it just sort of faded and I just kept on living. Then my mother, who dated a ton of different men, which was very hard on me.
Yeah.
She married a child molester who was already accused of molesting his kids. And so I think my abuse started at about 12, but my memories were truly repressed, which is still a very controversial thing in psychology today. There's a huge group of people that thinks that's total bullshit, that you cannot have a repressed memory. If you have repressed memory, some therapist implanted them there. I know for sure that they're true because it happened to me. I had no concept. I would wake up in the morning and have no concept of that, but I had debilitating anxiety. It wasn't until I was 23 and the man who would be my first I was 22. The man who would become my first husband tried to initiate sex with me in the middle of the night while I was sleeping. And that's how the abuse had happened to me. Someone creeping into my room in the middle of the night. And all of it came back to me in a flood in an instant. And I just had this spiritual sense, even though I was completely activated, of all of this is true. This is what happened to me. And I knew in my core, this had happened to my younger sisters. I confronted it right away within weeks, which happened to be 3 weeks before my big, giant Catholic Italian first wedding. My parents came to that wedding. Okay. That first husband was extremely abusive. When you come out of tremendous unsafety, those grandparents I lived with, one of those things that, if there's a maker when we die that we get to talk to, it's going to be one of all right, you got to explain this one to me. This one needs some explanation. They died when I was 15 and then when I was 17. My grandfather stood up that year at Christmas, before he died, and said, I just want to live to see Nikki and my other cousin, who's the same age, graduate from high school. I would have graduated in 6 months. So he's an intuitive. He's where I get it from. Yeah. I'm an intuitive. And I looked at him, I said, Grandpa, I graduate in a few months. You're going to be there. He died in March. I graduated in May. And after that, I was a runaway.
Oh God, Nikki. I don't even my heart breaks because I cry all the time on the podcast.
I do too. I'm a soft.
Oh okay. God, we're alike that way. But just the thought of the constant fixing, being okay, I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to go again. Yeah. And having, it's you have a target on your back. I can relate to so much of what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but it's people seek us out and they know that you're a target and that they do.
I've said for years, it's as if predators can smell you. Think about animals in the wild. I think as humans with our very highbrow consciousness, and our educations, right? We forget that we are animalistic. We really are. And I live in the Rocky Mountains. I'm surrounded by wild animals. And I often have the thought, animals trust their instincts. And some kind of way as humans, we're taught over the course of living this human life to disregard our instincts. And early childhood trauma really does accidentally teach you to override your own instincts. When your own parents are not safe for you, you definitely have that gut feeling of something is wrong here, something's not right, but you can't escape it because you're young. And that pattern follows us. And it's as if the other human predators know that. It's like emotionally, I was an animal in the wild with broken legs, dragging myself through. And the predators could see that. So my first husband absolutely preyed on me. He met me when I was 17, when I was starting college. It was right after my grandparents had died. I was raw some kind of way. I did great in school. That was my anchor. And anybody that survives a lot, whether they realize it or not, has some kind of anchor, one special person, one thing that they're good at. There's something that just keeps you going. And bless my grandmother. She was one of those older ladies who, that woman had 2 master's degrees and 6 kids and ran her own business. She had a bookstore. She was a force of a woman, and I take after her. And she would tell me all of my life, her father, I didn't find this out till being an adult, killed himself during the Depression when she was 10. So as a Catholic, whenever I would learn things as a kid and ask questions, and I'd say, what is suicide? I remember asking her, what is suicide? Remember when you were a kid and you'd learn a new word and you'd pick up that that's a charged word. You'd be like, the adults say that word a little differently. And she would just say to me in the way that I think a lot of Catholics do. She's of German descent. Don't explain things very well. It's just, this is how it is, because they don't have a lot of skill in dealing with what is emotionally hard. They just sweep it under the rug and keep on going. That's their surviving.
It's also a generational thing.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a generational thing.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And they dealt with things. I have some episodes of my podcast. My grandfather was in World War II. His ship went down. That man floated away and swam away from other people because he could hear that they were being eaten by sharks until they were picked up. So he had post-traumatic stress from that. For sure. I know it. So they went through so much, those older generations, without growing up with Oprah on TV, without having self-development as a section in the library, right? So I give a lot of grace. Like, younger generation loves to talk shit about older people. But my God, they could not get on the internet and Google and learn about anything that they were struggling with. Like, they really went through a lot without having a lot of resources.
But it's also, sorry to talk over you, but it's also a piece of why, you know, like my mom was attacked she was like somebody grabbed her off a bike when she was in 2nd grade and tried to strangle her. And she, to this day, like, is still afraid. Like, we always had to park in the front spot at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Like, you know, my mom has PTSD clearly, but never got a therapist.
No,
never,
so much
like,
pride in that generation.
Yeah. And so they
help.
like carry it all to this day. She has not ever seen a therapist, and she lost her child. She lost her husband.
Yeah.
She's gone through all of this stuff. And then it's kind of like, so I like you say, you like, they carry that stuff. I think that generation deserves a lot of credit for what they've had to go through. Yeah. And we don't give them that, I think.
Yeah, they really had to carry a lot without even knowing that resources were there. And whatever sense of that pride of, I'm not going to get help, I just plow through. I think they hit an age where to stop and examine that, they would have had to realize how much was lost in all of their lives by not examining it earlier.
Well, I say that to my mom too. I'm like, Mom, why don't you go to, because it's too late. Like, it's like set in your ways. But I wanted to say that. And I also wanted to say, go back like a teeny bit and I'm so sorry about your stepfather and all of the stuff that you're talking about. But I think that sexual abuse piece is so common where I think when we have complex PTSD, we push things out because we don't want to remember.
Absolutely. And not even in a conscious way. I think when most people hear that, they think of it like, oh gosh, I had a bad memory or somebody hit me once and I don't really want to think about that, as if it's an active way that you can just sort of intentionally block it off. That's not how it was for me. I think that can happen too. But with this type of trauma, to have no idea what happened to you, because you were there, you were there for it. To have memories come back and this happened to me, but I forgot it, feels so insane to yourself, and you feel so crazy trying to explain that to other people. And if you're around other people who don't have a lot of emotional intelligence and they look at you like, that is so crazy. Like, how, like, that doesn't make any sense. What is wrong with you? The compounded shame of no one understanding that about you is just as painful and just as heavy as all the things that got you there in the first place. That's what compounds. I've said for years that complex post-traumatic stress, it's like, it's normal in a sense in the human condition. We're all going to have really hard things. We're all going to have some traumas. But in a sort of more normally traumatized life, if you will, give me that grace to call it that. It's like you're standing in the ocean and a wave hits you and it knocks you out. But then you get up and you stand up, you get your bearings, you breathe, you've got some room. And to complex PTSD is like you get knocked down, and before you're up on your feet again, you get knocked again. And before you're on your feet again, you get knocked again until you don't even know which way is up. And you're so exhausted by getting hit after wave that's really how it feels. You're so disoriented and you don't look like anything's wrong with you. If you're in an accident in the ocean and a shark rips your arm off your body, for the whole rest of your life, people sort of give you some grace. They see you struggling with groceries, they're going to open the door for you. They're going to help you and they're going to feel great about helping you because you don't have an arm. I look fine. Always
I look fine too.
Yep.
And we both share that diagnosis. What I would love to know is, so so I interrupted you and I'm sorry for that, but I had to point out those things.
Oh, interrupt as much as you want.
Because
it's
I'm
so
just trying
story.
to make my listeners understand that, like, it's when you carry what you're carrying, and it's like, I can relate in a different way, but I have the same diagnosis, where you have to constantly pick yourself up. And then you get to a point where you're like, how much longer am I going to have to do this?
I mean, that's part of why I started the show, because I knew that when I was in the depths of my struggle and my depressive symptoms were so bad and before my memories came back, in particular, that I had psychomotor retardation. I had trouble standing up to go to the bathroom. I had to it was like I was so actually depressed, what that word means, that my body couldn't get the signals from my brain. I would have to, like someone rehabilitating after having like a spinal injury, I had to will my brain to get my arm to move, to lift my glass of water, to take a sip of drink. So when it's at that level, you can really see, okay, the brain is affected. This is different than I'm having a bad day, I'm down, lots of things have really hurt. Your brain is affected, and that means everything that you're living through and moving through is affected. As memories came back, I dealt with them in the light of day. I started realizing, even as a teenager, I was not going to sweep things under the rug. I was just not going to do that. I could see how my family had operated doing that, and just almost in a spiritual sense, I knew I cannot, if I do that, I will die. I will not pretend to make other people comfortable. I
think that's really impressive that you had that ability. I never did. I never did have that. I would go into like character, because I told you I was an actress and did a lot of theater and stuff when I was young, and I would go into like escape places and characters, and because I didn't want to deal with until I eventually had to kind of.
I think you probably needed to. I think you needed to until you needed not to. I escaped too. I think escapism, anytime anybody talks about escapism, we always talk about it in all of the negative senses. Okay, because we should be present, right? We know that. And we're escaping, damn it. We shouldn't be doing that. No, when you're struggling with this level of loss or pain, the heaviness of that, escaping it, it's not that I'm saying this to validate people who are like, yep, now Nikki said I can go escape. I'm going to go escape a lot. But we need seasons where if I hadn't escaped, I likely would have killed myself. So that escapism gave me room to just sort. Even when I felt as messy as I possibly could, I escaped into books and stories. See, I grew up in a family that would not have ever encouraged me or allowed me to do anything like acting. I think that actually gives you space and time to figure out more of who you are by playing other characters. I very much went into the psychology of characters in books and would get lost in movies and books. And then as a runaway, I did a lot of drugs. And growing up in New Orleans, growing up with Mardi Gras, watching women flash boobs, and I mean, having this party, drink atmosphere. I didn't realize till I left Louisiana, I had a very skewed upbringing. I was a regular in bars at 16. That's insanity. But that was normalized to me. So I had a period of time in my life of doing drugs as much as rock stars in the 80s. Like a divine blessing, I don't have a strong addictive personality. So when I decided to stop that stuff, I stopped. I still needed help. When I look back at my life, I had somebody ask me recently, what do you think helped you the most? Hard truth that it's very hard. And I know algorithms and stuff don't like hearing this, but I needed that drug period. That drug period numbed me out so that I could stay surviving. Now, knock on wood, cross my fingers, throw up whatever blessings you want to whomever and whatever. I made it through. So many people don't make it through. But we have to get to the nuance, the real nuance, not just the things that make people comfortable about what it is to recover from these things. And so many people out there who are doing drugs are trying to mitigate their pain. And we need to meet them in that. And instead of, you got to stop the drugs, we have to start the work with them and help them sober up in conjunction. But right now, the idea is that, no, you sober up and then you work on stuff. That is a deeply terrifying endeavor. So
I agree. That's such a good point. I mean, it really is. And I wish the algorithm would pick that up because that's a real thing to say. I have dealt with, drinking and done things in my own life as a crutch. I say it all the time, like wine. I'll go through, especially during COVID, especially at my darkest time, when I'm openly talked about being suicidal, I drank so much all the time because I just I didn't want to deal with what was really happening. And I think to your point, it's really important that we just don't take it away, rip off the Band-Aid.
It's
and
where
then
a lot of perfectionism hides. It's like, of course, perfectly and ideally, everyone would sober up and then do all their therapeutic things. That the human condition is not that simple. And we want it to be that way because it makes people feel calm and grounded and A-okay when they can put it in that little box. Yeah, that's the right thing for somebody. They should totally sober up and then do this. That's not how it works. And the trickiness of that, I have trickiness talking about this on my show, is that I think we also live in a modern era where people are using way too many mental health excuses to just continue destructive, disruptive, hurtful to themselves, hurtful to other people behavior. So the fine line and nuance I'm trying to hit here is we have to be radically honest with ourselves about where we are and radically honest about, okay, I know I'm using something. You said the word, a crutch. You hurt your foot. There's not anybody out there who's going to go, what's wrong with you that you're using a crutch? The doctor's going to go, no, you need a crutch. Use a crutch. The crutch will help you. We don't allow any crutches. Okay. And today we do it with big pharma. And today I am of the opinion, I don't know if it's a net positive or a net negative that mental health drugs were created. Because
don't get me started.
Anybody who gets on them
yeah.
then has to go through a process of, okay, how do I get off of these? What is the plan? Am I on these for the whole rest of my life? I know somebody recently been on meds, same med for 30 years, just had a psychotic break, because we don't know what those drugs do when you're on them for 30 years. We just don't. So I'm a big naturalist. I do some things that aren't natural, but I'm not on any meds. And I will likely not be on any big pharma meds. I think it's a crime that we don't at least try marijuana and different psychedelics with people first before going big pharma routes. I mean, there's a million things I could talk to here.
I mean, I definitely think for me in particular, and also like if you've tried every route, I am pro meds. I
am med short term.
Yeah.
Those meds were always created to be, like you said, a crutch. And if somebody is using a crutch 3 years after their foot was broken, we go, what is going on here? That's not right.
I mean, I definitely, like, I have differing opinions on some of that, because like if you're bipolar or you cannot live without a medication.
Psychosis is different.
Yeah. So thank you for saying that.
But also we're in a new wave
where everything
of
is
a lot
just
of CPTSD being misdiagnosed as bipolar now.
Yes. And we talked about that, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what I was going to say to your point is I am not on medication right now either. When I was on your podcast, I talk about my trauma of being forced to be medicated for much of my childhood, like Prozac, like on Prozac. Then I felt different, and then I felt weird. And then I totally agree with you in so many ways. I think I actually have a doctor coming on pretty soon where he talks about that exact thing, like long-term medication and what it does to our brains and weaning ourselves off of it. So I agree, but I just want my listeners to understand that I think if you need it, you need it. Like
you do. Yes. Yeah. And here's the nuance for me. Drugs are there, I think, in the healthiest way to help stabilize us. Mm-hmm. But the trickiness is we have to let this stuff come up and out of us. So if we're taking things that numb us out, how does that work? How does that work? So there's a point of diminishing return. And I think medicine has epically failed acknowledging that and helping people not hit a point of diminishing return and really keep the positive use of all of those classes of drugs really on the up and up and as an asset. I think what starts out as a stabilization becomes a dependency. As an addictions professional too, I've often asked a lot of people who prescribe that, explain to me why we only say that the things that feel good to take are addictive, but my people that are on psych meds, they're addicted to them too because they can't just stop them. Yeah. Why don't we look at that as addiction? That makes people very uncomfortable because it's kind of an inarguable point.
Yeah. I think also for what you do, like being a psychologist and, if you're a doctor, whatever it is, medicine is great, but it's a drug. You're on a drug and you could be on it for the rest of your life. And it's like, can cause addiction like anything else. But I do think that there's so many good things right now. Like I talked to you on your podcast about EMDR. I'm a big fan of talk therapy. I'm a huge fan of, I haven't done it personally, but a lot of these people that are just trying, mushrooms, what am I trying to say right now? I'm losing
psilocybin.
Yeah. So they're doing that therapy. So if you're listening, I think there's so much out there that can be beneficial for people, but I want to talk to you about specifically complex PTSD and your diagnosis.
Okay.
So I probably am missing some of this story, but I would love to know. I love that you do what you do, by the way, to help other people. I think it's just taking what your own story and turning it around and helping other people is what it's all about. I mean, I think it's so important. I was never book smart. So I'm always like, should I go to school to be a therapist? And I'm just not there, but I'm so envious of people that have the ability to do what you do, because I can tell you're great at what you do.
Oh, thank you for that.
So tell me how you got your actual diagnosis, because for my listeners too, I think I've said it before. I don't think I've actually ever done a podcast with somebody else that has been diagnosed with CPT. I can't even say it. Complex PTSD.
We know what you mean. Yeah, that thing. Yes.
And I would love to know, because it's a newer diagnosis, how you figured out what it was.
There were therapists that were calling this compounded PTSD before it was in the DSM. Mm-hmm. And as a teenager, I went through doctors and different medical professionals diagnosing me with anxiety, then diagnosing me with depression. Then when my memories came back, it was, oh, you have trauma because this happened to you, and you have abandonment issues because your father left. And it was just sort of a hodgepodge. And I saw a lot of therapists that I didn't like, that didn't help me, that completely missed who I was and were very unskilled. And I'll say this too. I'm a fan of this. My profession may not thank me for this, but there is no vetting of therapists through college to make sure that the therapists have insight, have emotional intelligence. It's all book knowledge. And if you get an A in book knowledge, and this is a field of, you have to be good at relating to people. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of therapists who were not good at that at all for me and really turned me off. It's part of why I ultimately became a therapist. I wanted to be a good one. I had been to so many ones that were bad. So eventually I landed with a therapist that I still work with. I would say she's my therapist, my mentor, my life coach, my spiritual sister, my colleague, my spiritual mother. And that's a spiritual relationship for me. And she was very skilled at helping me understand, no, I wasn't this, I wasn't that, I don't have generalized anxiety, I don't have this. This is just trauma for you. This is just the compounded trauma that has been like wave after wave after wave. And she was the first person who started teaching me that, frankly, nothing was crazy about me. That when all this trauma happens to you, that my system, my Nikki body, my Nikki mind and heart, my nervous system handled the trauma exactly how you're supposed to. When bad things happen to you, our system learns. There are pros and cons to being creatures that learn. And my system learned that there's danger everywhere. Mm. That's why I was so exhausted and so hypervigilant and so raw. My startle response was ridiculous. I would frighten other people how much I would startle and couldn't control it. So once I started working with her, it's as if I started to be able to exhale. And that may be one of the simplest signs that you're working with the right person, even if you feel raw and completely messy. And the things that she told me, the most impactful things, especially at first, had nothing to do with working on deep trauma. There were things like I would show up at her physical office. We lived in the same place at the time. After I started trying to go to the gym, because that was good for me, I was so hyper concerned with me stinking, like being sweaty. And she stopped me one day and she said, Nikki, you're not a stinky person. You're not a stinky person. Even if you're a little sweaty, you are a clean person and you don't have to worry about this.
Oh my God. Is that a symptom of it, that you're constantly apologizing?
So,
or saying like making excuses? Because I do the exact same thing.
There's a huge list of symptoms that I have come to know from my work that aren't even mentioned in something like the DSM. DSM is the big diagnostic and statistical manual of mental health disorders that they update every handful of years. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily agree with those updates. There's nothing nuanced in that book to me, nothing. So yes, some of the the symptoms. Let's see if I can make this as a list.
Let's go backwards a little bit, because we've been saying, oh, complex PTSD. And I don't even think I've ever truly explained what it is on the podcast. I've just said, this is what I have. But I would love for you as a therapist to explain it to my listeners.
Well, I can only do it in my way. I can't do it like another therapist would do it. Another therapist would go through all those diagnostic criteria, and those fit, but I don't even really pay attention to those anymore. When you have basically too much trauma that hits you like wave after wave, like I explained earlier, what it does to someone is it makes them hyper vigilant to the world, because your system learns, oh my gosh, I could get slapped with hurtful things in any moment. And instead of being smart and vigilant, like I might want a young woman or a young man to be in the world, we are hyper vigilant, which means when everybody else is having dinner in the restaurant and they're just having a social event, my back was up against the wall. So if anything happened, I was protected against the wall, much like a soldier with PTSD will do. If somebody drops something, and a soldier with post-traumatic stress might hit the deck, right? Might drop to the ground because they think a bullet's hitting, but somebody just dropped a tray in a restaurant. Same thing. You're jumpy. You're very jumpy because your system is like, what's that? What's that? What's that? Again, they'll diagnose you with ADD, right? When it might be trauma. Okay. So your attention is split because you're trying to pay attention. People at the table are just having a casual conversation, but you're making sure nobody walks in the door. I used to scan for weapons. I don't do this anymore, but I used to scan for weapons. And anything, if something happened, I could protect myself. So you are hyper aware of self-protection, even while predators can sniff you out. So your signals are kind of twisted. I say that trauma flip-flops a lot of things, and healing is flip-flopping it back. So my system was set to normalize abusive people in my life. My mom was very aggressive, like the punching holes in the wall type thing. Okay. So my system looked for same. That's why I married an abuser. Okay. So much is flip-flopped. Your anxiety is high because your system is so on guard that you're never present. It's like you're up here instead of down in your body. So a lot of complex survivors will say, oh yes, that's what happens to me when I explain this. It's as if we're ahead. When things are happening to you when you're young, and it's basically, you don't have the maturity to process it yet. What happens is our bodies are like, oh my gosh, this is too much to hold. And we don't know what to do with it. If we had a safer, more emotionally intelligent parent, they might talk us through it. And that's what we would do with it. And it would process out and we'd calm down and feel more grounded. Oh, okay, I got help with that. When we don't get that, what I believe happens is we're trying to think of how to make the pain stop, whatever that means for us, however we're thinking about that at an age. And it leaves our gut, because my gut would say things like, mom's not safe. You can't do anything with that as a kid. So it would leave my gut and go up to my head, and I'd start thinking, maybe if I could be perfect, she won't get mad. So I'm going to make sure the kitchen is clean so that she doesn't get mad. Mm-hmm. That's where the people pleasing births. That's where the overthinking births. I've never met a trauma survivor that doesn't overthink. There's no study on why we overthink, but I believe what I'm saying from the anecdotal evidence I've collected for almost 20 years working with people. Every trauma survivor overthinks because you're stuck in the body as a kid. You're just in that pain. You can't go anywhere. If somebody walked in and hit me right now, I'd call the police. I'd get in my car. I'd leave. I could be empowered for myself no matter what horrible thing happened to me. As a kid, I couldn't. So it goes to your head. When you lose people that you're attached to, because we need to be attached. We are biologically wired to be social, to be tribal. If I would have been kicked out of the tribe a couple hundred years ago, I would have frozen to death, died of heat stroke or starvation, or an animal would have eaten me. We are in our lizard brain, in the very primal part of us, we are wired to stay attached. So if we lose attachment because a parent leaves because they die or because they choose to abandon us, Or maybe because they're so sick, they can't show up for us. There's lots of different reasons with different sort of frequencies of loss there. But what happens to us is something in our deep psychology. It's not that we consciously think this. This is me putting words to the deep subconscious process. Mm-hmm. Deep in us, some part of us goes, okay, I know how I'm going to keep myself safe. I'm going to be so perfect for everybody around me. They'll never leave. And that will be how I secure having people stay with me so I never have to feel this pain again. So on top of a hypervigilance that is exhausting every part of our being, we then, on some deep, deep subconscious level, decide to try to be perfect in the world, which we absolutely cannot be. And dysfunctional people love a people pleaser. See, a healthy person, like I've done a lot of work to be a healthy person. If I have somebody who's codependent in my personal world, who's like, Nikki, let me do this for you, and I'm going to do too much for you, basically. I'm going to go, hey, stop. You have done enough. Sit down. It's my turn to take care of you. I won't let another person overfunction for me. Dysfunctional people, they kick back. Oh, you're an overfunctioner? Oh, you're a people pleaser? Oh, you're going to think everything that goes wrong is your responsibility? It's another side effect of a lot of trauma. We like to take responsibility, and we don't understand why. We take too much for other people too. One of the reasons is, okay, if I'm responsible for this, then I can do something about it. Mm-hmm. When the actual truth is, like when I was married to a very, very abusive man, there was no amount of anything I could have done to fix him, to make it right. But I couldn't acknowledge that at the time. I couldn't see that because what was deeply important to my lizard brain was just not losing him, no matter how bad he was to me. So a lot of us people,
you had to like make it like you always have to find ways to make things work.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my goodness. In a way that is, it's like we have to do our part.
Yeah.
But we can't overdo our part. And when we're overdoing our part, what we're accidentally doing is we're giving users in our life permission to underdo their part because they sit back like, she'll do more than me. Go ahead.
But also, I relate to so much of what you're saying. For me, it's like when you were explaining that, like, if I go to a movie theater, I always know where the exits are. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit here because if I have to, it's like you explained it perfectly. It's like your brain never slows down. You're constantly like, what do I do here? Or if I go to like on a plane, where's the exit? I mean, we should know that anyways, but it's like I couldn't fly
in a way that's different. Other people are just getting on the plane.
They're getting on the plane and I'm sitting there like, I mean, I always had massive panic attacks until I had a kind of out of body experience with my dad, who I've explained it on the podcast before, who literally came to me on an airplane and talked to me. And ever since then, I've been able to fly. It was the craziest thing ever. But everything you said is so true. I can relate to it so much. What I would love to know is, because I know that you've done so much work on yourself over the years, you know, with me, this is a newer diagnosis. So I am just kind of understanding it and I'm trying to process, like, you know, you said when I came on your podcast, it takes a long time because these are ways that I've lived my whole life.
Yes.
And so you talk to me about like meditation and yoga, and I'm very upfront that my brain doesn't have the ability. It does. I have to make myself do it. It's the laziness factor.
Yes. And you have to let yourself do it and let it be completely messy. Like the first yoga class I went to, I was ragefully angry in a way that made no sense to me, which made me feel totally crazy. Hearing that yoga teacher say things like, yes, you store anger in your hips. And I'm level 12 pissed off going, this is wrong. Yoga's supposed to chill you out. What is going on? I left and just sobbed. I was so confused. So let me try to answer your question with a clarity. Yeah. What does it take to heal when you have just had life smack you around with trauma and loss? I think it takes a lifestyle. And I think there are a lot of therapists that make it seem like you just go and you talk to somebody once a week and that's what should fix it. Absolutely not. You have to get out of your head and into your body, because a lot of trauma makes you, like, that's what I was saying earlier, it makes you separate. You feel like a big talking head. And in this day and age, the problem that I see with people who have this to heal is they just keep collecting head knowledge. And they come to me, and when they're working with me, one of my questions, if I take new clients on my intake, is, are you frustrated that you can't make your body feel what your mind knows you're allowed to feel? Like, you're allowed to feel calm. You're allowed to get on that plane in a reasonable way and not feel hypervigilant, but you can't just get your body to feel it. It's because we can't just gather information. And most of what is going on today in mental health is from science and academia. On top of our Catholic families who didn't like to deal with emotion, guess who else doesn't like to deal with emotion? Academics. So I think we have a lot of blind spot about how much emotional work, real emotional work, it takes to move through. We need to cultivate healthier support systems, real healthy support systems. Okay. If we have catty women who are manipulative and jealous, that's not going to work.
Hello, we talked about that
yes.
on your podcast.
Yes,
yeah,
we have to be.
You're 100% right.
Yeah,
yes.
we have to get radically honest. I mean, radically honest. And radical honesty to me is how I encompass all the things that I hate, that I wish were not the truth, but I have to ground myself in the radical honesty of. So we have to ground ourselves in the radical honesty of my system for most of my life, and not my adult life, my development. That's different. If you fully develop without a whole lot of trauma and then have something traumatic happen, you may have some post-traumatic stress. It will be unlikely you will develop a complex post-traumatic stress, which is just like every symptom goosed up past 10, because you're already formed into who you are. When it's happened when you were younger, that is while you are developing who you are. That's why it feels so much harder to heal.
And
that's why it takes longer.
That's why it's complex. That's like part of the definition. Although you're saying like a therapist or whoever you're seeing is going to take out a book and just be like, check. Yep. This is what you have.
Yeah.
But it does most, like, for myself and for you, this all stems from very early, like for me, 2 years old, for you, birth.
Yes. Yeah. And it's that, like you said, the trauma of your mom. So it's also on top of generational trauma. So in a sense, I could make the argument that you and our childhood lifestyle was traumatic. So what that means in healing is I have to have a real healing and healed lifestyle. So that means I have to give real, honest, healthy attention to diet. I gave up drinking years ago. I don't even want to drink anymore. Okay. That means sugar. I know somebody right now who's doing a month cleanse of sugar for the first time in her life. And what she's saying to me are things like, oh my goodness, I've thought I was irritable all my life. Was this just sugar? So it's like we have to attend to sugar. We have to attend to alcohol. And I say these things not to make you feel like, I have to do all these things. It's like, get excited about really creating a healthy life. Get excited about giving your adult self a healthy platform to live and breathe from, to sleep on every single day of your life. I have to believe that I deserve that. And there are no white knights. That's one of my things. There are no white knights. There's not a white knight in a medical lab coat. There's not a white knight in the perfect partner. There's not a white knight in the most perfect best girlfriend you could have. There's not a white knight in a single podcast you could listen to. There's not a white knight. Stand up and become your own white knight. You have to save yourself. I have done so many things. I also have a history of a botched jaw surgery that left me with a lot of chronic pain. So it's a combination of all the things that I do to take care of myself. That's meant Chinese medicine for me, acupuncture, yoga, rolfing. I've done some rolfing.
I don't even know what that is.
Rolfing is like it's very painful, very deep, stripping the muscles of tension.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it hurts like a mother. It
Yeah.
hurts.
Yeah.
I would cry and weep. Okay. While it happened. So you have to also have practitioners. I've been very cognizant of.
What about like Reiki? Like I've done Reiki. Like I do things that I think.
I think Reiki is wonderful.
Yeah.
If the practitioner doesn't have their own ego problem or personality disorder. And I will be the first to say, many, many, many energy workers out there, I love you if you're listening, but you have to do your work with a whole lot of integrity to be safe for other people. And there are a ton of people who are out there wanting to help people who are just not doing enough deep work, honestly. And so if you go to work with somebody and you're like, yay, Reiki, and something in your gut goes, I don't know about this, please don't make yourself force through that experience. Find somebody that feels like, oh my gosh, I could exhale. This person feels like a soft place for me to fall. This person has a wisdom and a maturity that I can learn from. This person wants me to do well. This person doesn't have to be the smartest person in the room. This person doesn't have to dominate me. This person isn't so impressed with themselves. Trust your gut. Healing is coming back to being able to not just trust your gut, but to act from it.
I love that you bring that up. I think that's huge. I think listening to your intuition, which I was very bad at for a very long time, I'm learning.
Oh God, me too.
In my old age, to like, I really tap into it now because I think it's so important. And I love that you bring that up because that's huge. But also something I didn't touch on that you brought up was when you are going to see a therapist. So you've been with yours for a long time. I want to reiterate how important this is, that you, if you're listening right now and you're like, oh, I'm seeing a therapist and they're fine. You know, I hated when I would see a therapist or a psychiatrist and they would look at the clock.
Yeah. If you're a deep person,
felt like it was like just, you know, like I would spill my guts and I would get to a point and then I was like, and I just got hurt all over again by you looking at the clock. Yeah. So I finally found that person, which is Dr. Nay, who was my therapist years ago and kind of like is the one that encouraged me to start the podcast in 2020. And if I still could, I would still see her because she became more of like like you said, like an advisor and a friend. And I never felt rushed in therapy. So I love that you brought that up because I think that's important for listeners that are listening to know that there's a lot of different people that you should, it's like dating. You should date a bunch of them.
And no therapist should grip you. Like no therapist should grip you. You get to explore any therapist and a healthy therapist. If you come and say, hey, I had an appointment with somebody else and it was really good, I want to work with them for a while. A healthy therapist should look at you and go, fantastic, awesome. If you want to come back to me or talk to me about how it's going or there's anything I can help with, reach out. Good for you. Keep seeking out whatever you feel called to. Or if they genuinely think, hey, I think you're running away from things, then that's the conversation to have. But a healthy therapist should not grip you and discourage you from exploring other modalities. You also can't explore other modalities like a bee hopping from flower to flower to flower. You're going to have to settle somewhere and do the deep work, but you also have to sample a whole lot, just like food. You know, you got to sample. So it's also the relationship heals. You know, there are different techniques that will help us with different specific things at different times, and we can explore all of those techniques. But at the end of the day, we're hurt because of what happened with other humans and what didn't happen that should have happened with other humans. How are we going to heal? With other humans.
Can I ask you, so you brought up that you made the conscious decision to not have a relationship with like siblings and a parent. Was that like part of your healing journey to just say enough? Like, tell me about that.
Yes. So in my early 20s, when my memories came back, they came back at 22, right when I was almost turning 23. I confronted my parents and he adopted me eventually. So he was my adoptive dad. Mm-hmm. He played that he was sleepwalking. My mother said she didn't know. My mother showed up at my house 3 weeks after I married my first husband, coming back from a honeymoon, with a box of my childhood, like pictures and mementos. And she said, I believe you that he molested you, but if you don't have a relationship with him, you can't have a relationship with me. And I cursed her out up and down. I didn't do any highbrow, therapeutic anything. Mm. And I told her to get out of my house and my life. I interacted with her once more after that when I was trying to have a relationship with her. And after I left my first abusive husband, who she had hated the whole time, I found out she was having dinner with him. And like secretly, I was escaping him. I thought he was going to murder me. Every time I got a new job, she would tell him where I worked. And I'd quit the job and run. Like I was really on the run. That was the nail in the coffin for me. I recognized, even at that very young age, a mother that had been warned about the molester and then basically stopped tucking us in at night and told him to tuck us in at night. That's a monster of a mother. Mm-hmm. I will die on that hill. Absolutely not. From that, and then watching her sort of snuggle up to my ex, I thought the levels of sickness here, the levels of boundary crossing, the levels of not being able to protect or show up for me are to the moon. Hell no. She doesn't deserve me. And I need to cut this off because my nervous system, see, our nervous systems are not supposed to sit next to a snake in the grass, see the snake and feel totally calm. It's very easy for other people to look at someone who's having a nervous system reaction, panic attacks, all of this, and go, my God, get some help. My nervous system is supposed to have an anxious response to an abuser, a monster, somebody who can hurt me, someone who is willing to hurt me. So I had to really flip that for me. And I think that was spiritual. I think there was spiritual help, maybe from my grandparents, to help me see that and hold on to that. And I went no contact. As those memories came up, I also pressed charges against my dad. Ultimately, he was sentenced to, it's a long, complicated story, but ultimately 20 years. He served 14 out of 20. Don't believe a judge when they say that they can't get out. They can't do time served and they can't get out for good behavior. Judges don't have that power, but they say it because it gets them elected. So judge said that, then he got out 6 years early on good behavior. So I went no contact with him. My sisters, that's probably the hardest thing because I was very maternal with my sisters, very protective. There's just too much manipulation in my family. Like we were very much raised against each other. That was part of the grooming, part of the dominating the household with his sickness was pitting siblings against one another, manipulating, not speaking the truth. So I went 8 years of no contact with my sisters too. One of my sisters, after having some children, didn't like something that I said about, hey, she needed to get some help because she was losing it in front of her 2-year-old. And I said, we have to stop these cycles of abuse. It has to stop with us. I'm in school to be a therapist. I'm a mandatory reporter. No one reported for us. I love you. But if you do not fix this, I'm going to have to report one day about you and your child. Please hear that as me loving him and trying to love you. And because I did that, she threatened the other sister that if the other sister didn't stop talking to me, then she wouldn't let her kids see her. And I sat back. I wept probably for months and months. I mean, wept like my heart was going to just drop out of my body.
Yeah.
But I had to sit and get very real about if I stay next to these people just because I'm family, my nervous system is never going to have a chance to heal. I can't feel safe when manipulation and games were how we were raised. And I can't be pure enough or honest enough or on the up and up enough to get them to do some of that work. I begged them to read about manipulation and to do the work. You know, we've had some knockdown, not physical, but like verbal, real arguments about them thanking me for saving their children from him. That they recognize without me breaking the secret in the family and saying it out loud that he would have just molested my nieces and nephews. I don't have any kids. And I've been able to look at them and say, so you will thank me for saving your children, but you won't read one book on manipulation so that we have a chance on a relationship. That's how much you're willing to do for me.
Yeah.
When you're the overfunctioner in a family system, the family really looks at you and goes, no, you're supposed to overfunction constantly. We do not raise to your level and function for you. You're supposed to function for us. So I had to recognize that. It's some of the hardest, most painful things I think anybody could have to recognize about people all you want is to desperately be able to be in their lives and be close. So I had to say no contact. I went completely no contact for 8 years. Then my dad got out of jail and got re-picked up on other charges. So the first stint was 10 years and it was another stint. And detectives and the DA's office that was contacting me lied to me and told me that my sisters were no contact with my mother. My mother was so manipulative with my sisters about me that I recognized there's no shot for me ever doing any of this work with my siblings if they're going to stay in her life. And so I just had to tell him, I'm not telling you to not have her in your life. I'm not going to manipulate you that way. But I can't do this with you. So when we tried again, we tried for a couple years and it just got crazy. If you're raised in a home with master manipulation, if you and your family members don't do a lot of intentional and direct work about what is the truth, what is honesty, things are so convoluted, you can't. If I flew back to New Orleans to see my sisters, there were times when we were trying to have relationships where I could tell they didn't want to see me. I had to also face that what I represented for them was I would trigger them back into the memories. And they were very resentful that I got up and out. You know, they basically live the same places we grew up, around the same people. And I think they resent me for really changing my life. And so that's a vibe that I can't fix for another person. So
I think it's pretty incredible. Like, and I don't want to say this because it's almost like I'm like patting you on the back and in a weird way, but it's like I'm very impressed and envious of your strength because it takes a very, very smart, strong human being to be able to walk away and cut those ties. Mm-hmm. So the amount of, and I know that we talked about your grandparents being like your angels and spirit. We talked about it on your podcast, but I'm very spiritual and I believe in that stuff. Mm-hmm. I talk about my best friend all the time. But Nikki, I have to tell you, not to interrupt you, which I'm very good at, but the amount of strength that you hold in your superpower is that you did that exact thing. And you know deep down inside that you are worth all of this because you have a job to do in this world. And that's, you're helping other people.
Thank you for that. What I want to add to that is now I know I'm strong. Now I can see that strength. I can hear you say that and go, yeah, I know she's right. That's right. But I want people to know that you feel that strength after. You do not feel that strength. I did not feel that strength as I was moving through. I felt broken. I felt out of my mind crazy. Mm-hmm. The first time my dad was arrested, it hit the news. And I spent 11 days in a psych ward. I self-checked in. I was like, I cannot take anymore. One of the best decisions I ever made. You don't get courage before, you get courage after. The joke I make is I've gone skydiving before. You don't feel brave before. You feel brave when your feet hit the ground again. Then you go, oh my gosh, I did that. Wow, I'm strong, I'm brave. That's the process too for this emotional work. So don't wait to feel strong or brave. Know that you're going to show yourself how strong you are as you move through it.
Okay, let me ask you this. So you said to me that CPT, so complex PTSD it takes a long time to heal. It's not like a regular, I was trying to talk to somebody about it. So if you were diagnosed with like you were manic depressive or bipolar, it's different, right? I mean, it's not.
It's very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. It's very hard. And I definitely have concerns about the nuance of how these things are explored with people. The idea that you can go to a hospital one time or go to a psychiatrist once and get a diagnosis, it's just, I don't know how to say it. It's just not cool. Like you have to get to know someone because like I'm highly sensitive. Almost every highly sensitive person, no matter what their history is, asks me, are you sure I'm not bipolar? Because I sure feel bipolar sometimes because our highs are higher and our lows are lower. So it's very easy to think, okay, I'm bipolar. And bipolar, really, the simple way to understand it is your actual chemistry, actually the cellular way that your body works brings you either into a super low state or a super high state. And you stay there for a period of time that's not healthy, and you make decisions that are not of your true character, your true thinking self. Okay. We don't lose that true thinking self, though we might be in a panic attack reaction. But you're still you. When you see someone who is really in a bipolar episode, someone that you have this intuitive sense of, oh my gosh, they're not themselves. Like what's wrong right now? Like they're not themselves. What's going on? It's very alarming. When someone is having post-traumatic stress, I don't think we have this, oh my gosh, they're not them. Even if we see them dissociate, which can be very scary to witness, it's more like, oh my gosh, they're going through something really hard is happening for them right now. It's a hard thing to put into words. It's another reason I think mental health struggles with it. Mostly what I have to feel to assess that with somebody is I can tell in my body. I can tell in my body by feeling their energy. Someone who's manic as opposed to someone who is having like a post-traumatic stress, overwhelm and rage. The manic person, the simplest way I can put it is I want to like all of a sudden have a tranquilizer dart and just, it's like, let's dart them. When someone's having a panic attack, now I have training for this. The average person might feel differently. When someone is having a post-traumatic stress, let's say fit, that's how it's felt to me. I can sit there and it's more like, okay, they have to get this out, like somebody vomiting. But the manic person, I don't want them to get any more out. They don't need to get any more. It's like, they got to stop. Like, we got to stop this.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop it. So it's very nuanced and it can look and seem a little different person to person. And I think for complex post-traumatic stress, that's why you have to work with somebody that is nuanced and experienced and has seen enough people to be able to understand when you're experiencing something that you don't understand, that they can pull into their wisdom drawers, if you will, and go, hey, I've seen this before. This is what I think is going on with you. How does this sound? And help you start making sense. We start to make sense of like, okay, so now I have this name of this thing that I have. Okay, what's next? Then I learn about these symptoms. Okay, yeah, I have a lot of those symptoms. And then we just keep peeling back the layers and getting deeper and deeper and more nuanced and more nuanced. That's how we culminate a different lifestyle. We need to have a very, very healthy lifestyle if we're healing complex post-traumatic stress. That means a lot of, when I teach boundaries, it's not just, everybody shows up to boundaries work like, all right, I got to set these boundaries and tell these people that this is my line and they need to not cross it. Yeah. That is not going to work. I mean, I tried boundaries like that too. And until everyone I have ever been related to would look at me like, yeah, now I'm going to step right over your boundary. Now what are you going to do about it? And then every sensitive person goes, oh shit, what do I do now? I tried to set the boundary. It didn't work.
That's actually really funny. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's not a boundary. That's a request.
Yeah.
That's asking somebody, hey, please don't step past my line. Mm-hmm. Again, if you're dealing with a reasonably aware and conscientious person, they'll go, okay, cool. I won't step over your line. We're like, okay, cool. But we don't try to do boundaries with the easiest people in our lives, do we? We try for the people who cross the boundaries. So we have to learn, even in nuance, how to set boundaries that we can control.
Ugh. You've said a lot to me that I'm like, these past two, like me going on your podcast and being like, wow, fascinating. And now I'm like, wow, fascinating. Okay, let me ask you this. If you were, because you might say that's such a dumb thing to say.
Oh, no, ask.
Oh, no. Okay, I shouldn't say that because I don't like calling myself dumb. On a scale of 1 to 10, if we could put it as a scale and where you are on your healing journey.
9.
That's amazing.
9. I'd say I usually put it to percentage of like I'm 85 to 95% healed in any given time.
You are my idol.
Oh.
No, seriously. Like, I am so impressed. I think I'm like 50%.
I just want everybody to know that they can get there. You know,
Yeah.
there will be probably some effects all of my life. Like you know, from losing your dad, like grief, you don't ever really end grief. It changes form. It changes shape.
100%.
You know,
Yeah.
you work with it, but you're still going to miss your dad if we have the grace to be in our 90s, right? We're still going to miss them. It's not like it's all done and tied in a nice little bow. Our human condition isn't like that. So in AA, they tell their recovering alcoholics to halt: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. You know, I carry that in my pocket. It's like, no, I'm not an alcoholic, but if I get the combination of hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, then I know I'm going to be a little more raw. If something really hard happens to me there, like my startle response might come back. You know, I might have trouble falling asleep. Like just this sort of nervous system activation may start to wash over me. And then it's like, okay, let me meditate some more. Let me get some more physical activity. Let me get another yoga class in. Let me go for a hike. I need to ground myself. Okay, let me see if there's anything on my weekend that I need to cancel and just be quiet and slow. I know you like the beach. It's like I picture you like going out on the beach. And I could fight that. You know, I could be really pissed off about that. But here's the deal: if you have post-traumatic stress symptoms, your system goes into fight and flight far too easily as a result of those traumas. So if I fight my own reality that my system is affected, I'm helping myself get more in fight or flight. That is the opposite direction than where we want to go. So we have to make a lot of peace, and we have to bring a lot of patience, not just about the time that it takes, but patience and soft kindness. If people were raised in homes with a lot of chaos, a lot of stress, a lot of abuse, I think it's fairly universal. It might not be 100%, but damn near. Patience is never had in big dysfunctional families. There's no dysfunctional family out there that also is good with patience. Like, hell no. So again, that's not in the criteria of like lacks patience with self, is not in the PTSD criteria, right? But it's universal. Because you have a vision of expecting yourself to be able to operate, I'm doing this with my hand, at this level. And we're upset with ourselves that our symptoms keep us away from operating at this optimal level. At a point, we have to practice some radical acceptance of, hey, some things happen to me that were outside of my control. One of the things that I can control now is not giving myself a hard time. If I give myself a hard time, I'm helping my nervous system feel more stressed, more ashamed, more bad girl, what's wrong with you, critical voice. That was the other symptom I didn't mention. Almost everyone who has this has a very strong critical voice. You could go to therapy and talk till your lips fell off of your face. If you do not manage that internal critical voice, it's the other thing I teach. We have to have boundaries within our own psychology, not just with other people, but with the parts of ourselves that have picked up dysfunction over the years. That's very
I know
new.
that voice. Her name is Sheila, and she's in my head, and Sheila is not very nice.
Yeah.
No, I mean, kidding aside, it's so true. Okay. So for the sake of time, because I could talk to you all day, I want to know, in closing, where people can find you, what you mentioned in the beginning that you're going to be doing some kind
the boundaries intensive. So I didn't teach it last year. This is, it's either my 9th or 10th year teaching it. It's 6 weeks where you will re-engineer everything you thought you knew about boundaries. You will know why your boundaries haven't worked, why they have been so frustrating, and you will learn how to construct them. You will learn how to support yourself in all the micro ways that we need to support ourselves to manage the various Sheilas in our own head that we all have to be able to do boundaries, how to support yourself when people push against your boundaries, and what you really need so that you can. We have to do work to get the noise. That's how I'll put it. The noise of this modern existence out, because we need some quiet. We need to prioritize peace. And if we don't understand boundaries and how to set them for ourselves and for other people, I don't think there's any amount of working on other stuff in the world that will actually get us where we want to go. We still need to do all the other things. You know, lots of people like you, like EMDR. EMDR didn't do anything for me. It didn't help. You know, that's another reason we have to sample a lot of things. Something that works for one person may not work so well for somebody else, but it's the boundaries intensive. I teach it this October, which gets you ready for your family and the holidays.
Oh, perfect timing.
Yes, it ends before Thanksgiving. So we get it in there. You have access to it for a year. You're with another group of people who are also sensitive, who also struggle with people pleasing and codependency and really prioritizing themselves and figuring out what that looks like, what that sounds like, and how to do it. So you can come sign up for the Boundaries Intensive. You can find me at emotionalbadass.com. You can go right to boundaries if you go to emotionalbadass.com/boundaries. You can learn more about me. My podcast is Emotional Badass. Really, you will know in your heart and in your gut if you want to work with me. You will feel called. You will feel curious. You'll be like, wait a minute, she connected dots that I've been trying to connect for a long time. And I do a lot of how. Like, you don't need more head knowledge. Yes, of course, we're always going to keep getting more head knowledge. But you need to know the functional, how to do this stuff. That's what I think I'm good at.
I think so too. I'm going to be looking. So you can do this wherever you are, because I have listeners everywhere.
Everywhere. Right? We have people from all over the world that have joined the Boundaries Intensive. Absolutely.
Guess what? I think that you are an emotional badass. But not, I'm going to take the emotional out. I'm just going to say, I think you're a badass. So maybe you want to rethink the title of the podcast and everything. Just redo it. It's fine. Nikki, it's just a joy talking to you, even though this is crappy, hard stuff. I think you're wonderful and you've taught me so much. And honestly, like, I don't know if you feel this way, and I will get emotional, but like, I feel so fortunate to do what I do and to meet people like you. And sometimes I say when I'm like in the morning and I'm about to record, you know, you have to be in the right headspace to do this. And sometimes I'm just like not in the mood. Like I was talking about the tractor and like all the stuff outside, but you made my whole day. So you have the ability to do that. Like you inspire me. I think you're wonderful and just keep doing what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Everyone, keep going. You matter. Your story matters. Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.